Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Monday, December 30th, 2019, and I want to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research channel here on YouTube. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Alright guys, we're going to continue looking at the quote-unquote giants or large hominids state by state. And in this video, we're going to cover Illinois, and it's very interesting. The state has accounts of these odd-shaped skulls again and again. We hear about these different kinds of skull shapes throughout all of the states that I've done so far. It seems to be some sort of devolution going on from the past, the early Holocene possibly, and the Pleistocene, where you have these, rather large animals, the megafauna, etc. Taking long periods of time, didn't die out immediately with what they consider to be the Ice Age, and these extinction events that they can't quite get a handle on, and what caused these things. They never get to the bottom of any of these things. I'm telling you, these psyops take so many. They're on so many different levels, and people are just going down rabbit holes and wild goose chases, and they don't know it. They go from one thing to the other thing, and they have some different perspective, but it's not a different perspective. It's a wild goose chase on purpose. So, in any case, we're going to look at some of these because there's some unusual skulls to see here, and also some Smithsonian Bureau of Ethnology admissions, although, sort of half-hearted, underhanded admissions, but, what else could they do? And they had to report on these things and write up their pamphlets and whatnot. But I'm going to cover a Smithsonian Magazine article, which is just a total psyop, misinformation, and again, just on so many different levels. I'm not going to get into it now, but there's so many rabbit holes to go down with these things, and they want you going down every single one of those rabbit holes. What do you think? They can't, there is no other. Either they're just incredibly ignorant and they have no idea about this complete other story that's so apparent, or they know all about it, and they have to sort of keep us away from that with all kinds of distractions and whatnot. So let's take a look at some of these accounts in Illinois. There's not a real lot of them. A lot of them are very interesting, in my opinion, but I'll try to cover as many as I can. I'll try to get through them. So let's take a look at this elongated skull that, on his website, Greater Ancestors, which sort of compiled these accounts and different factoids and whatnot, but whatever things they have on here may not be everything that's included, and still there's probably tons of research that could be done, but who's doing it? Going town to town, looking at town histories and digging up all this old information and reading through reams of books to locate these little factoids. I mean, I've done it myself. It's just, you got to sit down there and read and read and read and read. But here's this one of these elongated skulls. You can see there's a receding forehead here, rather large and prominent jaw. The nasal cavities are just sticking out here. The deep set of eyebrow ridges, and a very odd shape, long dolichocephalic type skull. So I'll just read to you what it says in here, and this is taken from an Atlantis source, believe it or not. It says the giant image in elongated skull was found. It was of ancient Aztlans that occupied Illinois, USA. Okay, so the Aztlans, which I've heard referred to before in mainstream research and peoples that they refer to. Okay, so they're trying to say what the Smithsonian, one of the psyops they're running, is that these people here, okay, with these very strange craniums, whatever they are the same as identical to native peoples here. Okay, so they're one and the same. There's no separation or differentiation in here, except when you get to the details, it's slightly more robust, or whatever stupid euphemism they want to give it, okay, to keep the story under wraps. Okay, it couldn't possibly be so. Okay, you're talking about people who are Homo sapiens like us as being Native American and Indians. Well, who are these people? Okay, and where did they come from? And it seems to be a whole race of these individuals all over the planet. All right, so maybe what they say about J.R. Tolkien, I've heard people refer to this before, is that he derived a lot of his material for writing his books from ancient mythology, ancient myth. That's something that he specialized in. So and that he took it from all these ancient folklore and myth and all this. Well, maybe there's a bit of truth in all that folklore and myth and whatever it was. Maybe the ancient past was more like what Tolkien was talking about. Okay, that he wrote about in his books. Simply out of knowing about all the folklore and myth and all that kind of stuff. Well, you have even today some mainstream anthropologists and archaeologists starting to take some of these myths very seriously. Okay, they're not wholly accepted by the whole community in general, and for those reasons, they want to resist change. It's just a common you know, simple psychology 101, okay? You want to know why a lot of people, some people, not a lot of people, but some people, when you say you got something great going to happen to you, and it's almost like they don't want it to happen because they don't want things to change. They don't want the status of the relationship to change in any way, so they resist change. They don't like change. People don't like change, okay? It's very difficult for them. Right. So what he says here is the size of the skull is more larger than average. It's not really good English, is it? The skull has a large hole in the jaw, typical of elongated skulls, and I think he's referring to this in the jaw, which is, if you know anything about anatomy, just going to let a blood vessel and some nerve endings through, whatever covered this part of the jaw and the face to get blood and nerves there, and sense of sensation there. Also, the skull seems to have the largest mastoid process I've ever seen, and it's a big vaulted cranial. The information on the skull is limited, though you may be able to find more information in Ancient American Magazine or this book, Crania Americana, which I find kind of interesting. This book that they're showing here, Crania Americana, with these odd shaped skulls that are obviously humanoid and not Homo sapien. All right, they're not Native Americans. See, this is part of the psyop. They want to say they're one and the same, and they obviously aren't. They may be even ancestor, and probably most certainly are an ancestor to Native Americans. Maybe even where they get their red skin pigmentation, for all we know. All right, and because of the isolation or whatever it is different than other parts of the earth where other things were going on, or you could only speculate on. And here's some giant skulls found in Lake County, Illinois. This is an illustration, I guess, from some publication probably of a display of these skulls. Again, these odd shaped heads, and seems to have all the teeth there, which would be highly unusual for people they dig up everywhere else in the world. They don't have very good teeth. Homo sapiens, they don't have very good teeth, so it's they're surprised to find these things. Mr. W. Gray of Highland Park also mentioned the discovery of a skull in a mound near Fox Lake in Lake County, Illinois. This skull is certainly very remarkable. The frontal lobe or arch seems to be entirely wanting. The large projecting eyebrows, deep-set eye sockets, the low receding forehead, and the long and narrow and flat shape of the crown rendered it a very animal-looking skull. So it's very interesting when they say this animal-looking and whatnot. And what we consider animal looking or whatever, again, these people, if they were people who looked like all what they're describing or whatever, probably didn't seem very animal like to them, and it's probably pejorative to call them like something like that. I'm sure we're infamous for this kind of bigotry. Why wouldn't it go on back then? Sure it did. If it was not a posthumous deformation, it certainly is a remarkable skull and might well pass for the quote unquote missing link. It was found in a mound 6 feet below the surface in company with 13 other skeletons. The skeletons were found lying with their heads to the center and their feet arranged in a circle around this point. American Antiquarian, April 1878. So it's very interesting when, again, this is repeated style burial with this sort of wheel shaped burial with several, skeletal remains to create the wheel with the central skeletal remains, which probably was somebody high ranking of some sort, maybe a chief. All right. But you hear about it again and again. We heard about it in other states such as Florida and Georgia. I mean, all these various states. So it may indicate a certain time period or a certain style burial for certain ranking individuals in the same society. I don't know, but it seems to be a recurring thing with these accounts, and it should be taken seriously as again, sort of noted and categorized and put somewhere in some sort of timeline that we can understand. Okay, instead of just saying, okay, these are the Dina and the Hopewell and the Mississippian culture and the Manville's. Okay, so that's it? I don't think so. It's not what this is saying, right? And here's another interesting one here. With a man and woman of 7 foot stature in Mifflin County, Illinois. Skeleton of a man, skeleton of a woman, and a child found in the banks of Peoria Lake outside the city limits of Peoria, Illinois. The man and the woman both were about 7 feet tall in stature, and their huge skulls were larger and well proportioned to their frame. These skulls had a large frontal brain capacity, which testifies to their great reasoning capacity. So, again, vaulted cranial, large capacity of cranium. Okay, just we've heard all these accounts of all these various type of skulls and shaped cranial and horns and whatever it might be. So it certainly suggests something like a Tolkien past, and God only knows what was going on in the Pleistocene era and the Holocene when you had these large megafauna and other things that lived in the sea that we just fantastic looking and incredible. And this is what the world really was, folks. It's not what they're telling us it was. It's just, I don't know, but the man and woman, okay, so the man and woman and the child were found in a lying position beside one another. The boy seemed to be lying on the woman's arms. Interesting how big this child might be, because again, it's referring to these large chieftains and their children. And how big would the children? I mean, if you're talking about 7, 8 feet tall, whatever. I mean, 12-year-old could be like 6 foot tall. Easy. Not a lot of 12-year-old, 6 foot 12-year-olds today. Not around here. Okay, so most likely the people that buried them either shown respect or pity for the individuals that died, or they were buried where they lay. The Scientific Association of Peoria dug up the man and confiscated the skeletons, which have been swept under the rug, or not available for viewing, or do you have the possibility for asking without being met with sarcasm? So, History of Mifflin County, Ohio, 1880. So it's from Fritz Zimmer, and this obviously was, um, a published account, and just they're going to dismiss it or whatever it is based on what we just don't want you to believe that. So again, just this little grouping of articles here about these odd shaped skulls and what the past could be. And by the way, interesting factoid: J.A.R. Tolkien was Sister Wendy's teacher, the art critic nun. If you're a certain age like me, she was on like public television, and she used to give like art critique, and she was J.R. Tolkien's student. I used to love watching that show with that nun there. She was good. Sister Wendy, the buck tooth nun, Sister Wendy. I liked her. Cook County, 7 feet 4. Find bones of giant Indian. North Shore policemen at Chicago dig up remains in the sand. The skeleton of a giant who, when he walked the shores of Lake Michigan, stood 7 feet 4 inches high in his moccasined feet, and was discovered in Rogers Park the other day. And upon the discovery, hinged on the afternoon's wonderment. Joseph and Charles Everett, boys who live in Ridge Boulevard near Pratt Avenue, made the find and reported it at the Rogers Park police station. Dr. John Klein, one of the searching party, declared that the skeleton was that of an Indian chief. Further search, among other things, disclosed a copper knife, arrowheads, a quantity of gold, and a moccasin. The skeleton was taken to the patrol wagon to the Rogers Park police station. Later, it was given to Dr. Klein. The doctor will mount the skeleton and send it to Leipzig University. So it was sent to some university somewhere, probably never to be seen again. This was 1900, folks. It's not a long time ago, so, where did it go? I'm sure agents of the Smithsonian got a hold of it and destroyed it. Jack S. sent me this article about it, and I read it. I can't seem to confirm it, but, I've heard rumors of this too. And besides the fact that most of these skeletons, like 90% of these skeletal remains, all crumble into dust anyway. And again, with these chieftains that may be of large stature, and it could have been, and it seems highly likely, that at later times, in historic times, when the explorers were here, and then the settlers, the colonists, again, the Native Americans, are among the tallest people in the world in 1800 for some inexplicable reason. There would be no reason for that. They have all the science on height and everything, okay? We increased 10 centimeters, 3.9 inches. That would bring us up from where we were, as Europeans, 5'5" to 5'8", 5'9". That's average height. 7 foot tall is gigantic. It's unusual. And the Plains Indians, Native Americans, were also among the tallest population in the world at the time. Differences in height haven't changed since the Stone Age through the 1800s. So when you're referring back in time, these people of extreme large stature, they have no scientific way of explaining. Everybody should be of the same general size. They're all human beings. So whatever the theories are or whatever, you see these people back then, they're only 163.6 centimeters tall. It's these little tiny guys, The North Americans, for some reason, because they're mixing DNA and all kind of stuff, ended up being the tallest in the world at the time, And the Native Plains Indians, is that a coincidence? Does that have something to do with adjustment in gravity? Do some locations have stronger gravity, weaker gravity for some reason? Maybe they're electrically charged to be that way, have a predilection for that for some reason. Like something happened in North America, maybe. It could be like the Watusi. I keep saying that, and the people who are new to the channel, I give examples from this video here, of the Watusi, and here we go. Here's the prince of the Watusi. They live in their own compound, Here's the son of the prince of the Watusi. This is like a 12-year-old kid, He's running up to his dad, the prince of the Watusi, He's 7 foot tall. These are all average-sized guys. The kid's as tall as the average-sized guys, They killed the poor leopard over here, Kids touching it because you don't get to do that in real life. Poor leopard there, boy. He looks like a hardy boy, Man kill leopard with spear. Leopard don't need a spear to kill you. See the difference? Who's a bigger pussy? Unearthed giant skeletons, Illinois mound rich in relics and of prehistoric days. Some proved to be 8 feet long. Diggers believe they have found an ancient burying ground. Excavations now going on in Hilltop Farm of Mr. M. Crabtree, 8 miles from Mount Sterling, Brown County, are revealing a large number of prehistoric relics. The diggers are working upon a mound. With the first day's work, the mound began to yield traces of handiwork of past ages and the bones of those who had wrought it, and others immediately joined in the search, still going on. Thus far, several skeletons by actual measurement 8 feet long, and several pieces of remarkable pottery, beads, and curious implements have been taken out. The bones crumble badly almost as soon as they are taken to open air. They are so numerous that it's believed to be prehistoric burying ground has been found, greater in extent and more perfectly preserved than any yet discovered. Under the bones of each of the ancient dead were found pieces of pottery beneath fragments of the skulls of some of the others' vases, the largest of which would easily hold 2 gallons. Okay, it's very interesting, these vases under the heads with 2 gallons. Wow, that's huge. Underneath one skeleton was a curious bowl in the center, which was the figure of a king seated upon a log, and it is thought that these bones may be those of the great leader of the race that once ruled this portion of the continent. Strangest of all, the articles found the bones were implements that are apparently made of bamboo, some of them evidently shaped for purposes of weaving. Vast quantities of beads were found in the mound of a strange material, almost white, and possibly made from the best of potter's clay, so things they can't explain, the man weird. Okay, so I'm running out of time here. I want to take you by one of these Bureau of Ethnology sort of admissions here. Here it is. Here's one of them, the 12th annual report. Okay, it's an illustration from the archaeological dig. Investigative agents respond to giant Osage Indians discovered in Dunleith, Illinois burial mound. Dunleith, Illinois. Okay, a large Indian while lying on his back measured close to 8 feet. Giant skeleton crumbled when removal was attempted. The skeleton was said to be accurate measurement of 7 to 8 feet. This incredible discrepancy screams dishonesty. My guess a lesson calculator was given because it falls outside of preconceived ideas. My guess is that a measurement of 7 foot 11 inches sounds less fanatical than if one is to say between 7 and 8 feet. Okay, so they go on to say number 5, the largest of the group was carefully examined. 2 feet below the surface, near the apex, was a skeleton, doubtless an intrusive Indian burial. Okay, so an intrusive Indian burial they're referring to is a secondary burial. Okay, what we call now a secondary burial. Okay, intrusive burial. Near the original surface of the ground, several feet north of the center, were the much decayed skeletons of some 6 or 8 persons of every size, from the infant to the adult. They were placed horizontally at full length with heads towards the south.